Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, where we say, is this the real life? Or is it insanity? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Easy come, easy go, la la la, la la la. Anyways. Oh, I guess I'm not gonna be a musician. Not gonna be a singer in this life. But yeah, that's how I feel right now. That's how I feel right now. Do you ever wake up in the morning and read the news? And you're just kind of confused. Like, is there a malware in the Matrix? Did some like 4chan hacker hack the Matrix and now the world is just going utterly insane? I don't know. So anyways, yesterday I did a video about Trump demanding that the CEO of Intel be fired. He has conflicts, so he needs to go. I did this whole video about how it's very weird now, right? We have a president. We literally have a president who believes that he should do everything, right? The judges should not be able to strike down his illegal proclamations. The legislators shouldn't vote for what he's doing. He literally believes that he should go to Coca-Cola and demand they change the recipe for Coke. That's not an Onion article. That's real. The President of the United States literally feels that he should be able to change the recipe for one of the most popular sodas in the entire world. That is the world we're in. Anyway, so he came out and he demanded that the Intel CEO be fired immediately. And I talked about just how weird and insane this is. But don't worry, it's all okay now because our president is a taco. Our last president was the first dead president we had, and apparently this is the first foodstuff president we've had because apparently he's changed his mind. Right? Goes on to Truth Social. I met with Mr. Lip-Bu Tan of Intel, along with Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick and Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent. The meeting was a very interesting one. His success and rise is an amazing story. Mr. Tan and my cabinet members are going to spend time together and bring suggestions to me during the next week. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Is that his cry for help? People have made a joke about that on Truth Social. He's always like, thank you for your attention to this matter. Do you think this is his cry for help? His one place in this world where he can say, is anybody paying attention to how fucking crazy I am? Why will nobody do something about how fucking crazy I am? Is this how he's trying to reach out in the world? They talk about that with teenagers, like cutters. The reason they cut themselves is because they desperately want somebody to pay attention and realize that they're in pain, that type of thing. Is this like social media cutting? Thank you for your attention to this matter. Do you see me? Do you see how batshit crazy I am? So anyways, yeah, so yeah, Mr. Lip-Bu Tan apparently is going to be sticking around at Intel. CNBC talked about this. Trump flip-flops on Intel CEO, calls him success days after demanding his resignation. President Donald Trump said Monday that he and members of his cabinet met with Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan days after he called on the head of the chipmaker to resign. Intel shares rose 2% in extended trading. Wow! Look at how powerful Trump is. Trump got the value of Intel to go up after he crashed the value of Intel a couple of days ago. But don't pay attention to that. Talks about this. I met with blah, blah, blah. right? An Intel spokesperson confirmed the meeting. Quote, earlier today, Mr. Tan had the honor of meeting with President Trump for a candid and constructive discussion on Intel's commitment to strengthening U.S. technology and manufacturing leadership, the spokesperson wrote in an email. Trump's latest message marks a stark change in tone from last week. In a Truth Social post on Thursday, the president wrote that Tan, quote, is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. There are no other solutions to this problem. Intel said in a comment later that day that the company directors and Tan are, quote, deeply committed to advancing U.S. national and economic security interests. So, should he stay or should he go now? If he stays, there will be trouble. If he goes, it will be double. This is the musical episode of the Daily Vlog. We won't do these anymore. Anyways, so yeah, does the Intel CEO stay or does the Intel CEO go? One of the most important companies for the United States, especially from the technology realm, right? We're trying to bring chip making back into the United States. Intel used to be one of the kings in the processor world. And it has been dying for a long time, right? In the past 2 years, there's been something like 40,000 layoffs. They're stopping building fabs that they were going to create. They're pulling out of different areas. It's interesting, Gamers Nexus did a very good video. Came out a day ago or a couple of days ago, and it was a 30-minute video basically talking about how they essentially think Intel is in a death spiral. They're like, we're not saying Intel is in a death spiral, but it does look like Intel is in a death spiral, right? And so anyway, so in that world where Intel is trying to right the ship, not only do they have to worry about tariffs and all of that kind of stuff. One of the big things you have to think about with manufacturing is most stuff, any final product, regardless of where it's assembled, has components that come in from other areas. And so they have to deal with tariffs. So they have to deal with tariffs for any products coming in that they need. They have to deal with retribution from other countries that may or may not want to deal with the United States. They have to deal with all of that mess. And then on top of that, they have to deal with a batshit fucking crazy president, high on Diet Coke all the time, that just swings back and forth with whatever the fuck he wants and basically thinks he can demand anything that he wants, and people need to snap to. And so it'll be curious to see what happens with Intel going forward. Spoiler, it's probably going to die. I mean, to be honest with you, Trump or not, Intel is probably going to die. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. But this is the perfect example of the issues of the Trump administration. And the thing to be considering, since we're only 6 or 7 months, right? He came in at the end of January. It's in the beginning of August right now. So I guess about 7 months at this point, is that there is no stability here. Like, not only is he batshit fucking crazy, right? Not only can you not trust a goddamn word that comes out of his mouth, right? And he's more spastic than a fucking, golden retriever or puppy dog on crack. But on top of that, he's trying to get involved with everything, right? Bringing up the whole thing about fucking around with a recipe for Coca-Cola, like that's real, right? This guy is so fucked in the head, he believes that he should demand that the recipe for Coca-Cola be changed. And so we're now in this world. We have a batshit crazy president with a legislator, with a Congress that the Republicans don't want to do a thing about, right? They don't want to do their jobs, right? They're more interested in pretending like they're fucking alpha dogs, right? They're pissing on themselves. Fucking primped ass poodles are pissing on themselves to prove how big a dog they are instead of being fucking men, being fucking women, doing their jobs. And so this is where we get a world of chaos. And what I want you to grasp here is think about this for businesses of how do you make decisions? How do you make decisions worth tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions, billions of dollars in this abject chaos? So it's interesting here with Tan. And so apparently there's a new process. Their next generation process is 18A. And look, I'm not Gamers Nexus. You can watch Gamers Nexus. I think it's called the 18A process. So they have a next gen process for creating chips that's coming down the pike. One of the questions that's already been brought up is what if they do not get enough customers for that particular process? And so they've said they essentially might kill that process before it even gets off the ground. So this is Intel's next generation of chips. And if they do not get big contracts for that next generation, then they're not even going to produce that generation of chips. And theoretically, it means a leapfrog to the next one. You know, that's what they say. Who knows how much resources they have. But one of the things you have to be considering here is think about if you're a large business, right? So, Apple doesn't buy Intel chips anymore. But let's say maybe you're Dell, maybe you're Smart Micro, maybe you're some company out there, again, that buys a lot of processors. So you're trying to sit there and you're trying to figure out what vendor you're going to go with. Are you going to go with an ARM vendor? Are you going to go with AMD, which seems to be the leader right now? Or are you going to go with Intel, right? Intel might give you a better deal on the processors. Look, the processors might be a little less expensive. Or maybe there's a reason you feel that Intel would be better. So you're sitting there and like, do we go with AMD? Do we go with Intel? Maybe we get the processors a little bit cheaper if we go with Intel, maybe something else. And then one of the things to consider here, then you have a batshit crazy president that comes the fuck out of nowhere, right? And starts talking about demanding that the CEO of Intel be fired. Now think about this, right? If you're buying processors, you're gonna be buying a lot of processors. One of my viewers that I met many years ago was very interesting. He was responsible for the build out of the original Azure data centers. And he was talking about what was required to actually deploy 500,000 servers. And he had a direct line. He had a direct line to the supply chain for Intel simply to verify that they were getting enough raw materials in to produce all the processors that they need, right? That's the kind of thing you have to think about. Just because you put an order in doesn't mean you're going to get all those products. You got to try to verify things. It's risk management and that type of deal. So imagine you're sitting there and you're a large company. You're like, look, we're coming out with our next whatever widget. We're going to need a few 100,000 processors, maybe a few million processors. Who are we going to go with? All right, AMD is at this price point, Intel is this price point, ARM, that's a different architecture, we're not going to fuck with that. So basically we're looking at AMD and Intel, right? Intel really needs to get traction again, so maybe they're going to give us a better price, but AMD frankly gives you better performance at this period of time and people like him better. And it's like, but the CFO comes in and is like, you know what? If we can get a 10% discount on processors, we're gonna go for the 10% discount on processors. Who the fuck cares if it's Intel or AMD, which is a scary thing, right? And so that's the thing. And your company, your CEO is sitting there and has to make a decision. And their decision will be like, well, I really wanted a new yacht this year. And so if we go with Intel and we get a 10% discount and we're buying 1 million processors, I think that's about enough money for a down payment on my new yacht. So I'm feeling maybe we should go with Intel because add in techno garbage, right? But here's the thing. So you're sitting there like, okay, right? And you might have people that are interested in buying Intel. Oh, okay, yeah. And they're siding for Intel. Maybe it's patriotism. Maybe it's because they don't want a monopoly of AMD or whatever. But they're looking at Intel. And then all of a sudden, you have this batshit crazy fucking US president who storms in and says the CEO of Intel needs to be fired immediately. And they're like, yeah, well, here's the thing about buying yachts. I need a job to buy a yacht. And so if we buy all of these, if we order the processors from Intel, and for whatever reason, Intel cannot provision our order, and then we have to change, we have to pivot to AMD, like, I might lose my job if that happens. I can buy a yacht next year. Let's just go and buy these AMD processors. And as I say, with all this kind of stuff, what happens as this thing starts to occur at scale? What happens when Intel just seems like the sickly processor company of the United States, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying Intel is bad, but I don't really know what the fuck their business plan is. They've had some weird fucking technical problems over the years. The president of the United States fucking hates their CEO. Like, it's taste. Like, you think about that. Like, we had Sean Urbas on. He's a CTO and co-founder of this Pandium, this company called Pandium. They do integrations. And that's one of the things he talked about. Like, I was asking about how he makes decisions, and it was good to have him on film. He talks about this, or on camera. And he's like, yeah, a lot of it is just a gut decision. Why do you go with this versus that? At the end of the day, right? I mean, again, you put out a lot of techno mumbo jumbo just so people think you're smart. But really, it's just like, I just kind of feel better at that one. Like, think about this. Like when I had my computer repair store, right? I had my computer repair store, and we built hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands. Anyways, we assembled a crap ton of computers. So we did servers and gaming systems and all those kind of things. And that was the thing. Back in the time period, Intel and AMD was very close together, but we always sold Intel. And the reason was because back at that time period, everybody knew who Intel was. For whatever reason, some people didn't know that AMD existed. So if you said you used AMD processors, they're like, I don't know how I feel about that. If you said you use Intel processors, people are like, yeah, whatever. Here you go. Here's a check. Right? Again, and that's just kind of like a gut feeling, right? I sold a shit ton of Intel simply because of brand name. People knew the name Intel. They didn't necessarily know the name AMD. And Intel had much better branding back in the day, so it was much easier to explain what the hell they were buying. Right? And that's how people buy things. And what you have to understand is that's not just how customers buy things, but it's also how CTOs and CIOs decide what to buy. And it's how CEOs decide what to buy. And it's how those types of people at incredibly large companies decide what to buy. Like one of my sponsors, I won't say who they were, one of my sponsors, they had such a big fucking budget for boozing and schmoozing. Like their salespeople, when they went to events, they were just given a fucking company credit card. They were told to make the customer happy. And that was it. Make the customer happy. Here's the credit card. And you're like, what? What do strip clubs have to do with latency? What do pints of beer, alcohol, or limos have to do with IOPS? Not a goddamn thing. But if people like the salesperson and they've been treated well, I mean, really at the end of the day with a lot of this equipment, does it really matter? Why are we buying this versus that? Because the IOPS on the graphic card's latency is 10% less. Oh, really? I didn't realize the IOPS on the graphics card's latency were 10% less on this piece of networking equipment. It's kind of impressive that that IOPS on the graphics card of a Switch is better. I guess that's what we should buy. Okay. Buy $100,000 worth. Here's a credit card. Anyways, that's how it works. So yeah, with Trump getting in the middle of all this and flip-flopping and all that kind of thing, it is just creating uncertainty. It creates uncertainty for Intel, which is damaging to Intel. And it also creates uncertainty for the wider tech industry and the wider economy in general. This is already causing problems. Like I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like I read the mainstream media and it has no relation to when I talk with people. I don't get it, right? As I've talked about before, like moving to Asheville. Like a few years ago, you go to Asheville and you have all these people with remote work and they're making all this money. We would do meetups or whatever, and it would say, who's looking for a job? And fucking no hands would go up. 60 fucking techs in the room. Who's looking for a job? Not a goddamn one of them was looking for a job. Like, it wasn't just that they had jobs, but they had jobs that they were happy with. And what was interesting is I've talked about, right before Helene hit, we would have the meetups, and all of a sudden, you start getting like 10 hands up in the room. And not only were 10 hands up, but they had been unemployed for a little while, right? And as I go around, as I talk with more and more people, that's more and more of what I'm seeing. It's interesting. I mean, as I've said with my wife and I, we're looking at moving, possibly to Austin. And a real question for me is, do we buy or do we rent or do we even Airbnb for a while? Because you start looking at these houses and it's $5,000 off and $20,000 off and $100,000 off. You already see the price drops. Like you can go into Zillow and you can see what the prices were. And some of these, like they'll take it off the market and then put it back on just to try to clean the record. And you'll see, like it started at $1 million, then they dropped it to 900, then they dropped it to 850, then they took it off the market, they brought it back at 800. Right? I personally see the cracks already in our economy. And this kind of thing is not going to make any of that better. None of what Trump is doing makes me feel comfortable about anything. It's not simply, okay, this area of the economy is batshit crazy, but this area of the economy is doing really well. So I just need to refocus my investment, right? Hey, the tech industry might be spinning around in a circle, but construction, we're building so many houses for the American people. I guess I'll get in the construction industry. No, it's just everything is crazy other than AI, and that's just stupid, and I don't know. Some things to think about. So yeah, now it appears that Trump likes the CEO of Intel. Because who knows why? Who knows why? Maybe somebody grabbed the bottle of Diet Coke away from him and he sobered up for a couple hours and realized, I'm a functional cokehead. That's what we have. I remember that with my mom. My mom was an alcoholic, horrible alcoholic, literally died in her own shit. Alcoholic so bad, I had to mop up the shit on the floor she died in. Anyways, I tried to do the intervention. I fucking tried. I still remember, well, Eli, I'm a functional alcoholic. I'm like, fuck. There are just points where I give up. Like, whatever. Maybe that's what we have. We have a functional cokehead as president. Eli. He might be a diet cokehead, but he's functional. And that was the thing. Like when I looked at my mom, I was like, do you think this is functional? Do you think the chaos you're creating around, I mean, like, you keep yourself fed. Somehow you keep a roof over your head. Like, we really have to kneecap the definition of functional to call you functional. And I kind of feel like that's what we're dealing with President Trump. It's like he's a functional president. He shows up to work every day. Look at all the executive orders he's writing. It's like, fuck, he's doing something. I mean, that's how you want to define functional. I guess he's functional. I don't know. What do you think about all this? Put your thoughts down below. Give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a moron. All that matters is you give me an interaction, because it is the modern world of YouTube. And with that, see y'all later.